From Point Barrow, Alaska, a special wildlife report. Tracking polar bears by satellite.
Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. One of the most recognizable of the world's great carnivores is the polar bear. This huge bear has always lived in relatively undisturbed areas, building dens in snow which covers the frozen land. During winter, polar bears hibernate in these dens for many months. And in such quarters protected from frigid weather, females ordinarily give birth to 1 or 2 cubs, but sometimes even to triplets. Where there is no conflict between man and bear for the use of the land, the bears live a normally content and undisturbed life. The males are mostly compatible, and the females seem to take thorough delight at the maulings they undergo from their offspring. It appears an idyllic existence, but it's one that may now be in jeopardy. Plans are underway for exploitation of the oil resources beneath the very ground where they live. There is concern that cubs like these might not be able to survive disruptions of normal denning areas. Therefore, it has become imperative to study the habits of these great white bears of the north to determine the effect of tapping of mineral resources in areas where the cubs are born. The reasons are complex. Polar bear cub mortality may be high in areas where they are disturbed. When disturbances occur, the bears tend to move away, but toward the sea rather than inland. This means that instead of cubs being born in good denning areas where survival is more likely, such as this, the female bear may be forced into a poor denning situation on the unstable pack ice to have her cubs, where survival of these cubs is questionable. The whole matter of denning is crucial. One reason for its importance is that in the polar bear species, the females have cubs only once every 4 years, and continuation of the species depends on the cubs surviving into maturity so they can breed. Therefore, good denning conditions must be protected. When young bears have grown to be yearlings like these, they are not in danger due to oil resources development. But the smaller cubs almost surely are. If they can't survive, there is no future for the species. Polar bears are extremely well adapted to the severe cold of the Arctic regions. They spend much of their life on the ice and have no natural enemies to contend with. If coastal oil exploitation forces the female polar bears to have their cubs on areas away from the land and instead make their dens on the less protected pack ice over the Arctic Sea, then it could endanger their existence. While the bears normally hunt on pack ice, it's no place for denning. Such ice is over the sea and moves constantly. A female entering a den, hibernating and having cubs, may find when she emerges months later that the pack ice has drifted into areas where seals are not available due to their uneven distribution here. Over the past 10 years, the Alaskan polar bear has been the object of an intensive, highly sophisticated study by wildlife biologist Jack Linfer of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. After capturing and studying a polar bear, the animal is released to move normally about its range while wearing a radio telemetry collar. This collar sends out a signal which is beamed to a satellite orbiting high above the Earth. Recently, Wild Kingdom was invited by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, to observe this work being done to help preserve the polar bear. The study is conducted high above the Arctic Circle near Point Barrow in northern Alaska, where the sea is frozen 9 months of the year. A scientific team which is headquartered at Point Barrow is doing the study and is joined by Dick Denny. He went to observe and do a special report on how the polar bear study is being conducted out on the pack ice by wildlife biologist Jack Lenfer, who is the project leader. Lenfer is aided in his research by Fred Sorensen, who is a biological technician. Having finished all the physical preparations, Jack and Fred are about ready to go. The only thing left to do is for Jack to give the pilot instructions on what direction to take. Dick will follow in an observation plane.
Within an hour's flight north of here, Jack Lenfer hopes to locate an adult polar bear and dart it with an immobilizing drug. Everything's been checked out, and Jack's given the word to go. So now we're on our way to the Arctic ice pack.
This is the fixed-wing plane in which we'll be following the helicopter. Once a polar bear has been immobilized, we'll try to land nearby and continue our observations on the ice.
Our separate plane allows us to get a good overall view of the activity which will be occurring, while at the same time keeping us out of the way. Below is the northernmost city in the United States, Barrow, Alaska, where the human population is increasing due to oil resources exploitation. We'll leave that outpost behind us as we seek a polar bear to immobilize.
The polar bears rarely travel very far inland, whatever the season. Each year they spend summer months hunting seals on the pack ice. Later on toward fall, the female bears are inclined to move shoreward and den up to give birth to their young. But right now, while they're still on this open pack ice, searching by airplane is the best way of locating them. Continuing his special report from this fixed-wing plane is Dick Denny.
I'm staying near the scientists in the helicopter ahead as they continue their search. They'll have their best chance of finding polar bears now, right here, about an hour off the coast on the pack ice. Almost immediately, they encounter a bear. While any polar bear sighted would be of interest, the most imperative need is to locate females for radio telemetry collaring. Adult females average 500 pounds and are only half the size of adult males, but there's a good possibility of locating a female from the air. Jack Lenfer will be taking a closer look.
We'll slow down and move in closer. First of all, to get a good bird's eye view of how the bear can move swiftly and well over an extremely difficult surface. Though there is no way to be certain without immobilizing the bear, it would seem by its general body conformation and movement that it's a female rather than a young male. One of the things we scrupulously avoid when darting polar bears from above is careless or hasty shooting, which might result in a dart in the wrong location. With the temperature around 20 degrees below zero right now, fingers quickly become numb and eyes glaze with tears. An improperly placed dart might cause poor drug injection or injury to the bear. This we try to avoid at all costs. Ideally, the dart should hit the bear's shoulder or haunch. We're holding off shooting as we try to determine a little more surely whether this is a female or a young male. If it's a young male, we'll let it go. But if it's a female, we'll definitely dart her. Indications seem to be it's a female, so we'll put a dart into her. We're swinging in just right above the bear, but now we've come into an area of loose snow, which is being stirred up by the helicopter's blades. So we'll have to wait till we're past it to shoot. It's a good hit in the left shoulder. We'll continue to stay close to the bear because it'll take a little while for the immobilizing drug to take effect. We want to stay close to keep it from getting into open water and rough ice. The dart fell out, but that should be no problem. The drug was fully injected on impact, and now it's taking effect. We'll circle back to where the bear stopped and prepare to land close to where it's lying. A short distance from where we've landed, Dick's plane has landed too. The drug has paralyzed the bear's motor nerves, so we'll soon begin our work on it.
A polar bear is a powerful animal, and even when immobilized, it must be approached with extreme caution. That's just what Jack Lentfer is doing now.
The bear is alert, but cannot rouse itself to charge Jack. Still, he remains cautious as he approaches. Tossing the rope will be a final reaction test on the bear. Even the head-turning reaction by the bear is not as vigorous anymore, and Jack knows that these movements, too, will soon cease. Safety is always the foremost concern, and while he hasn't had to use his rifle for self-protection, Lentfer keeps it handy until attack by the bear is no longer a possibility. There's no significant reaction at all now to Jack's touch, so it's safe for the scientist to begin work in earnest on the bear. Fred will help now to move the work along as rapidly as possible. As hoped for, the bear is a female in estrus. Numerous measurements will be taken and thorough physical checks made. But the neck and head measurements are especially important since the radio telemetry collar she'll be wearing has to fit her perfectly. She'll be wearing it for about a year. It's important that pregnant female bears be radio telemetry collared. Signals will show where denning is occurring in the coastal zone. Before the collar is put on, these scientists will complete a number of physiological tests that will increase our knowledge of the species.
Just as the work on the immobilized bear is completed, additional scientists are arriving to assist in the next phase of the project. Accompanying them here is another plane with specialized equipment with which the scientists can track the bear. This is made possible by an extremely sophisticated radio collar that was attached to the bear during the testing. It's a very different radio telemetry collar. There are two separate transmitting devices embedded in the polyurethane and Lexan of which this collar is constructed, and the antenna is located within this flat plate on top. The collar must be the correct size for the specific animal, and then that animal has to be observed for several days wearing it to make sure it can adjust to it. The first of the two transmitters in the collar beams a signal steadily for 8 hours, but only on every fourth day. That signal goes from the collar the animal is wearing to a satellite which is orbiting the Earth every 108 minutes. The satellite in turn relays the locations from which the signal is originating to the Goddard Space Center here in Maryland. A printout is made there through a computer, and this is the information Lentfer finally gets at Point Barrow. The second transmitter beams a local signal to an aircraft in case it becomes necessary to locate the bear again in the event the satellite transmitter malfunctions and has to be replaced. Now, back on the pack ice with the scientists, the final field operation begins, marking the bear for identification.
The bear is marked in 3 ways. Smallest of the markings is a code number, which is tattooed on the inside of the bear's lower lip, a marking it can never shed. In addition, a coded ear tag is affixed, and for identification at a distance, large numbers are painted on both sides.
The numbers are large enough to be read from a low-flying aircraft and permit accurate identification with a minimum of trauma for the bear. As soon as the marking is finished, the tracking plane will take off again. Inside this aircraft, a radio signal will be received from the bear's collar. That gives them a fix on the exact location of the bear and can be used to check the satellite signal for location accuracy. Such signals should be able to pinpoint the bear to within 2 miles.
With precision bred of experience doing such work, the scientists have finished their efforts on the bear before it has begun to stir, yet not so quickly that the bear will have to lie immobilized on the ice for a long while after they're finished.
Radio telemetry signaling is very important in this polar bear project, and since the study began, Jack Lentfer and his team have located 41 coastal dens and 96 sets of cubs. The radio telemetry signal being broadcast by the local transmitter in the bear's collar is good and strong. With that checked out on the receiver, they're ready to go aloft for the signal checking to be done from above. Lentfer says the polar bears can't den up far inland because deep snowdrifts are required and tundra snow is too shallow. Most successful denning occurs in the immediate vicinity of the shoreline.
Hopefully this bear next autumn will dig a hole in a suitable area and wait for more snow to cover her. Thus, a stationary signal for an extended time means she's denning. Lentfer and his men remain on the ground in the tracking plane, watching until the bear regains control of itself. But that doesn't take long. As soon as it recovers, Lentfer's plane takes off to begin radio tracking from above.
Just outside my window, an antenna attached to the strut will pull in the radio telemetry collar signal. It takes only a moment to make the proper receiver adjustments. And then the pulsating signal comes in fine. Our hope is that on the basis of our studies and conclusions, man's intrusion in this remote area can be controlled so that it's compatible to the continued existence of the bears here. The equipment is working fine, and the signal has guided us directly over the recovered bear. The signals we'll be receiving from the collar on this bear during the next year will enable us to reach conclusions which will benefit all the bears inhabiting this region. Now it's possible to pass along word that the bear's in sight and the radio signal is good. Another important phase of the polar bear project has been initiated, and now can be continued at the laboratory back at Point Barrow.
The transmitters on this female bear will allow Jack to follow her movements for up to 1 year. Hopefully, she will breed, then den up to have her cubs this next winter. If all goes well, she will give much new information to help scientists, such as Jack Lenfer, work toward the continuing survival of this magnificent species.
The use of a signal beamed from a bear's collar to a satellite and then relayed to Maryland and back to Point Barrow, Alaska, might seem a roundabout way of gathering data. Yet this new use of space-age technology, adapted to wildlife management, study, and preservation, is incredibly important and effective. An exciting forerunner of what may lie ahead in utilizing the most modern of man's technical skills to help protect wildlife anywhere. It is providing an extremely important insight into how the polar bears of northern Alaska are being affected by such human activities as extensive seismographic explorations in search of subterranean oil resources, as well as the drilling operations which occur once those resources have been located and can be tapped. Similarly, it will allow us to evaluate the effect of other disturbances during such operations, along with the increase of human populations. This will indicate to us what measures should be taken to minimize disturbances brought on by development. Also, through the cooperative efforts of NASA and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, man is beginning to learn many new things about polar bear natural history. These are important matters, and they will significantly aid us in preserving the magnificent white bear of the North as a vital part of Arctic ecology in the wild kingdom.